It is a beautiful day. I am so excited to be here with all of you. I want to thank you all for coming, but I also want to thank you for what you do the under 363 days a year, which helps our young people. I also want to take a moment to recognize that elementary honors choir. So they've got a backstory. During the pandemic, choirs fell apart. So they said they needed a way to make it cool again. They did it by creating the honors choir, which had music that was harder, more challenging, because they knew young people are going to rise to the occasion. It is pretty amazing what happens with high expectations and high support, some of the many outcomes of BARR. So if we can, give them one more round of applause. So the talent in our youth is inspiring. That's what I want to talk about. What we can do to discover it, recognize it, nurture it with others, and get stumbling blocks out of the way to truly let it shine. We need to stop operating in a mold of only seeing what we've always seen. We've got to have ways to have multiple perspectives and see people from a variety of settings rather than just the single view, which is often our individual classroom. We have got to stop operating a factory model. It limits our view and stops our ability to work with others. And we've got to be open to that moment of surprise, that spark, that flame that's going to turn into something big. The choir director at Hemet shared with me that when teachers come to see this choir perform, they are surprised by these students. They said a lot of these students are pretty quiet in their class, and they show up and see these charismatic stage stealers. They are nothing like the students they see. But now that they're able to see this other dimension, they can support them in new ways. So one of the remarkable things about talent is often it shows up when and where we are least expecting it, especially when we think we already know who a person is. So I'm going to share a story about my child, who I thought I knew pretty well. But a number of years ago, we had some friends who said, why don't you run a 5K race? It's in the neighborhood. It'd be really fun to do. I thought, why not? Our weekend was completely overscheduled already. Why not try to jam something else right in there? So my daughter was in 7th grade, and she was going to have time to run the race before she went to gymnastics. And my husband, John, was going to run it with her. I was going to come with my 3rd grade son and then take him to soccer. My daughter said, I've never run a race before. I'm really nervous. I said, nothing to worry about. It's a neighborhood race. No big deal. So when we arrive and there's police on horseback and there's 700 runners, I realize I've kind of misunderstood what we're going to show up at. So my husband and my daughter start off running, and Haley's getting bounced around in the pack. So John says, run to the outside. He thought, burst of steam, she would tire out, they'd run the race together. So we never saw her again till after the race was over. I went and saw Haley and said, hey, how'd the race go? She said, well, I ran with a group of guys because I got separated from Dad and I didn't want to get lost. And I won for all the women. I said, as a loving mother, honey, you did not win for the women. Maybe you won for the 13-year-olds, but don't telling people that you won the race. So I leave her and go and find my husband and say, hey, how'd you do? He's like 203rd. I'm like, you crushed it. I am like so impressed. I'm like, way to go. Fantastic. He's like, how'd Haley do? I go, she got real confused. So I said, now we've got to get going to the next event. So we start walking to our car and the award ceremony is going off. So it turns out my daughter won for the women's and she came in 7th out of 700 runners. It turns out my daughter was Forrest Gump. I had no idea. So that being said, it turns out that this strength that she had was no one-off. This continued to open opportunities throughout her life. So in high school, she had supportive teachers, supportive adults. She won All-State multiple times. She ended up getting a scholarship to Xavier, competed in the Big East Championships in college in both cross-country as well as in track and field. As well as this past year, she was inducted into her Athletic Hall of Fame at her high school. When she was in 7th grade, yes, we had no idea she had this gift, let alone how it was going to help shape the rest of her life. So here's the thing. We know every person has incredible gifts, but way too many times those gifts don't get noticed and they don't have adults to support them, to actually have them come to fruition. We need to systemically be looking for those gifts and find ways to nurture them. The problem is schools are not built to do that today. Now, if you're here, you've probably heard about BARR's model of success with over 400 schools across the country, every single one of them having impacts in terms of absenteeism, test scores, teacher retention. But the reality is what that is adults seeing those talents, seeing those strengths, and working together to support them. When BARR is having those successes, I want to emphasize what Juan continues to say. Those successes is not a success of BARR. BARR's not bringing any answers in. All of those accomplishments is a reflection of the talent of all of the adults and young people in our communities. All BARR does is break the factory model so we can see those talents and actually work together. We know that this is work that we can continue to do. Now, to see that talent, it starts with relationships. Those relationships are with students, with families, and staff. That's the foundation that makes everything else possible. Because newsflash, when that gift's gonna show up, that great talent, there's no drum roll, there's no trumpet fanfare. They certainly don't show up on command. All of those gifts show up in the routine. It's happening in the ordinary. The extraordinary is occurring in the ordinary. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The mark of wisdom is to see the miraculous in the common." That's what happens when schools change the way they work. It's in the everyday. When we focus on relationships and we look for strengths, that's what changes. If you've ever lain in the grass and watched for shooting stars, you know how this goes. There's long minutes of watching. There's long minutes of waiting for that student's talent to show up. And then out of nowhere, it appears. And if you've got a team of adults to see it, you're going to support it and be able to see incredible things that are happening. The key is we need to recognize and we need to expect every student's talent to show up. We know it is there. We just have to find it. I'm also going to be honest. I've worked in the classroom. Sometimes those talents aren't that easy to see. In particular, you're picturing that student that is doing anything but what you're asking them to do. And you are recognizing the rest of class is following him. The reality is that student is a leader. You may not like where he's going. You may not like that everyone else is following. But if you start with that strength and say, here is a leader, how am I going to support that strength? It is incredible to see what's going to continue to happen. BARR appears simple. Focus on relationships and data. Lead with strengths. But we are consistently seeing increased math scores, reading scores, graduation rates, reduced risk behaviors, and improved life skills. BARR is the most researched model in the United States. Once again, the impacts are happening is the educators in the United States are amazing if you let them do what they were called to do. A good friend of ours in the tech industry toured some BARR schools, and he said, "Oh, I see. You've updated the operating system of the school." I think that's about right. You know how your computer works a lot better with an update? You can see what's happening in schools now with the same students, the same teachers. You're having better results. We asked our schools in the BARR network if there were some young people that wanted to show you their strengths, show you their gifts. And over the next 2 days, you're going to be able to see them. We had so many incredible responses. Next, you're going to hear a young woman named Sarah Schiff. She is from a BARR school in Armstrong High School in Minnesota. She's now developing her mind and her musical talent at Princeton. She had the talent to also be in an honors choir. She told me when she got notified that she got accepted into Princeton and Juilliard and Northwestern, she wanted to FaceTime her teachers. She said, "It wasn't just my success. I was very excited to share the news with someone, my teachers, who saw my talent and knew what I was capable of." seeing their talent and what they're capable of, nurturing their passion until it blooms. That's what you do. That's what it takes to change the world. Kirsten Baszler is a superintendent of instruction in North Dakota and a wonderful friend of BARR. She says, progress travels at the speed of trust, and trust can only develop when there are strong, authentic relationships. There is no one better at building relationships in this BARR community, and the progress that we are making is transforming our world. A while back, we noticed that educators in a lot of our BARR schools were calling their students most likely to change the world. I love that so much. I've broadened it to include all of you. You're the ones working together to see and support the talents of our young people. You're focused on what's possible. Possible when we change the way we work, we change systems, we change schools, we change lives. You are most likely to change the world. Thank you.